All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, if you'd like to send in some comments, maybe there's a guest that you'd like us to try and get onto the show. My email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. Exonation, my first guest of this show, this 2-hour show tonight, is Kenneth Hopkins. And we're going to be talking to Kenneth about abductions, alien abductions that is, and photographing alien abductions, and much more. I've had the pleasure of having Kenneth on the show before, and his story is heartbreaking. It's also, at times, you will say it's not real, but I'm telling you, Exonation, what you are going to hear over the next hour is real. Joining me now is Kenneth Hopkins. And Kenneth, welcome back to the X Zone, sir. How are you doing tonight, Kenneth?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to come back.
Kenneth, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Oh, God. Well, I've learned some new information since I last spoke with you. During the Truman era, they were combining genetics with humans and with celestials. And I've not gotten much more information on this other than that my birth mother and I are not the same genetics. And that a Scandinavian woman's genetics, or her egg, was put into my mother with my father's genes. And so I have no genetics or any relationship to my mother's side of the family.
Well, who's your mother then?
What? I don't know. She was explained to me, which makes even less sense. She was a Palladian, not yet born.
So you were a seed implanted into a seed?
No.
No? Okay.
They took the woman's egg, a Scandinavian woman's egg, and I believe the Palladians come up as Scandinavian. And they took my father's semen, they brought together and created the embryo that they put in my mother in January of 1953.
Now, who are they?
We had military, U.S. Navy military. We had the Palladians and the Greys participated. And it was a Palladian seed, or half embryo was Palladian, the other half was English.
Wow.
We weren't the only project on this. There were numerous others that these projects are done with. But I have, in my research, I haven't gotten much on Truman. I've gotten a lot on the Eisenhower. My next book will be getting into the Eisenhower deals with the Greys.
Before
But,
we get too far ahead, Kenneth.
okay, I know I have a tendency to do that.
It's okay. I understand you're really excited about your topic, and I would just like to know, let our listeners know, when you started to start questioning your who you were, and when was it first brought to your attention, and how that you were part ET.
Okay, well, the Pleiadians have repeatedly said to me I was born unto them. I really didn't know what that meant. And then one of the surveillance vehicles via military, we had a confrontation with rocks. I was getting sick and tired of being followed everywhere. And I told him he needs to leave me alone. He doesn't know who I am. And then that's when he said, your father is not your father, which made no sense. So my wife did a genetics study, and my father was my father.
Okay.
So I never looked any further. About 5 years later, my son had been reading the stuff and says, Dad, you're not German, because I thought I was half German. He says, you're Scandinavian. And then he showed me the documents, and I keep forgetting the name of this outfit that does, it's a big one that does the genetics and the history on genetics. So their report came back that I was Scandinavian.
Okay, but when did you first know that you were part ET? Now, when did the Pleiadians tell you this, and how did they tell it to you?
In my meetings with them at night. Most of us that our abductions have started at night continue throughout our lives. I had no idea that what was going on with the Pleiadians was a reality. I thought they were dreams, dream women, the same women over and over. So I didn't realize I was an abductee till 2020. Most of my life I had blackouts, and I ignored them because I didn't know how to deal with them.
So, how many times have you been abducted so far?
God, it's more, how many times a week?
Every week you're abducted?
They take me several times a week. And they take us, most of us, especially with the Pleiadians, they take us in a state of sleep. So often we'll wake up somewhere else, not really knowing where we are. The Pleiadians, the Greys use a different methodology, and the military uses one very much like the Pleiadians. Now, did I send you any pictures of the plasma?
Yes, you did.
Okay. That is how that camera interpreted that. Your eyes would be blinded and pained by looking at that light. But we could only get one security system, which was an old system that would actually record. We were blowing, I lost 4,000 in cameras, trying to use other cameras. I got quite a bit with the Bushnell hunting cam. I was amazed. It showed people going through walls, people coming out of walls. And I think I sent you a picture of what we called splitting.
Yes, you did.
Prior to an abduction, a person will become two people. One leaves, one remains in the bed. We had several photographs of that. So we found the Bushnell camera was great, except if plasma occurred. If plasma occurred, the camera was fried. So we could, the only camera that withstood that was the old Swan camera. For some reason, it wasn't sensitive enough, so you can actually get a visual in it. I don't think I sent you but the quality of the visual is very distorted.
Now, help me understand why you? Why were you selected? Why have you been abducted by the gray aliens? Why have you been abducted by the Pleiadian aliens? Why are you being abducted by members of the U.S. Military?
Well, in the Truman era, agreements were made that they would exchange human and ET DNA. I haven't been able to get much more on that. I've come across a couple others that were in it, but I have not been able. The only way I'm going to get access to that information is somebody that was around at that time. A lot of the information in my early research days I did get has been removed from the internet, is no longer available, which made some of my research where I couldn't get it substantiated difficult to present.
But I'm trying to figure out why the military is involved in all of this instead of...
The military was involved with the Eisenhower, and evidence has shown me that they were involved. Well, to go back to World War II, Walter Stein was working with Hitler's occult, is what they called it. But Hitler had involvement with a celestial group from the Antarctic. So Walter Stein came over to speak with Truman that we need to find a way to effectively deal with the ET situation. So a division was formed by Truman in the CIA, but it would become part of the CIA, but at that time was part of Army intelligence, or the name of the intelligence at that time. It was called Aegis Prime. And their particular interest was on the Celestials and World War II. Well, after World War II ended, the CIA came together and Aegis Prime became a division of the CIA. And then the CIA, from then on, pretty much has been working for a lot of the assumptions that they were given of future situations of Earth and the Sun. And the development of underground cities started.
All right, stand by, Kenneth. You and I have to take our first break. X-Zone Nation, Kenneth Hopkins is our guest this hour. We're talking about Pleiadian aliens, gray aliens, and the U.S. military, as well as the CIA, according to our guest, that have mistreated him, followed him, terrorized him, and much more. And we'll talk about this when we come back from this very short break. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. And welcome back to the X-Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us in your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Kenneth Hopkins is my special guest this hour, and Kenneth, during the break, you wanted me to clarify that the only experience and interchange that you had with the Central Intelligence Agency was with the Project MK Ultra, and that started at the age of 7 for you?
For me, it was being done to a lot of children, and it was being done out of Boston Children's Hospital. by a Dr. Vincent Perlow. In my case, he's dead now. If you look up his name, you'll see MK Ultra slashed out under Google.
Wow.
But the CIA developed the MK Ultra with the assistance of Dr. Mengele, who became a Dr. Smith. So he continued to work with the U.S. after World War II. Hitler did not die in World War II. The evidence suggests he ended up in Argentina.
Wait a sec. You're saying that Hitler did not die in World War II?
No, evidence came up that I came across where his belongings were sent to Argentina. The Russians, as they entered into Germany, several high-ranking officials mentioned they saw Hitler in a plane as it was taking off as they were coming in. Hitler's body, of course, was never recovered. So that gave me reason to believe Hitler didn't die at the end of World War II. And the U.S. poo-pooed Russia when it said that they saw him in a plane taken off as they came in. His belongings being shipped to Argentina makes no sense unless he's in Argentina. So that's kind of an assumption I've made, is that he didn't die. His body was never recovered. The fuel needed to make his body burn was not sufficient, wasn't present in the area. Where he was last seen, there was no evidence that he had died there. I was very impressed with the rise and fall of the Third Reich. I thought it was an incredible piece of documentation. And I researched because in my past life, I was involved with Germany. And so that's why I went heavy research into the German situation. So the CIA and Aegis Prime came together. And Aegis Prime kind of remained a, what's the word I want to say? Kind of like a prestigious group of the CIA. The Aegis Prime became responsible for all the UFO research that the CIA was involved in. The CIA, after the end of the war, and the author that worked with me on my first book was involved in the translation of those German documents into English. And he's done 8 books explaining the development of our intelligence system, how it was taken out of the German system. And he was a familiar person to work with. So he helped me publishing my first book.
Okay,
he knew about the
I'd like to get back to why and what the CIA was doing with you as a 7-year-old in a Boston hospital.
As I explained, I think briefly in the letters, and I wish I've been awfully busy. The CIA was looking. It seems like that my first session at Boston Children's Hospital involved an IV in my arm, and I did procedures to a young child. That's the beginning of the MK Ultra.
Wait a sec. The CIA.
No, the people conducting this would be professors from Harvard and Yale.
Okay, so these professors from Harvard and Yale had you do surgical procedures on somebody else?
They had me take a needle to a child and torment the child while I was under. This is a method they use. It creates dissociation, and it also works to create another personality. They do is they expose the first personality as something so traumatic that it can't accept it. So the mind creates a personality that can accept it. They take that mind, they train that mind. And so they activate them when they need them to be activated. We were mainly used for couriers and assassins, was what they had us mainly doing. Because in transferring information in the testing they did on the MK Ultras in the hypnotic state, they're able to withstand 10 times the normal strength of a normal person. My ribs are broken in Canada over the MK Ultra project. We just got this information recently from some contacts in Canada.
Now, where in Canada were you assaulted?
Okay, I sent you the pages of one of the women that spoke to the guards that broke my ribs.
Yeah, yes, but you sent it to me, so I'd like you to tell our audience who's listening right now.
Okay, I believe it took place in an Ontario joint Canadian and U.S. base. And of course, the men told her that the wounds occurred because I tried to escape. That was what was put in their report. They had tortured me over 3 nights, and they broke 7 ribs, and they splintered some of those ribs. So what they were trying to do is they were trying to enforce the MK Ultra training, to bring on the dissociation. I'll find out more, but I didn't know. I thought the ribs broke because of surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've been doing much surgery on replacement of organs. And so the left lung had been replaced, and then the ribs were broken following that surgery. So at that time, I connected that to the surgery. Later, I'd find out, and I really appreciate the report from the people in Canada explaining to me what happened. The guards had informed them the ribs are broken on the table, but the x-rays in the hospitals following the nights of each time they broke ribs showed that those ribs were concurrently broken 3 nights in a row. So with the creation of the alternate personalities, they became highly useful with intelligence because they activate them. They can use numbers, they can use names, they can use a phone call, a noise. They can activate many ways. There was some stuff saying that Walt Disney was being utilized to activate some of the MK Ultras. The partner in the book that I'm publishing now was an MK Ultra with a cerebral implant, and she came out of what they called the Monarch projects. So after the military witnessed an abduction, they decided to bring a young woman in to see what they can find. They witnessed me and another young girl being abducted. Then they decided to bring a young woman in to watch me. And that's what UFO Girl military intelligence is about. And that book is finished and it's getting set for publication now by Christian Faith Publishing, and they seem pretty optimistic with it.
Yeah, okay, so why did the CIA select you?
It was the military, and
the military.
Once they put the embryos in. So they didn't select us, they selected the ones they put the embryos in.
And how can you validate these claims? It's like, wow, why would anybody do that to another human?
Oh, when we want to look at that, you need to see how these disposable children that were kidnapped from South America were utilized and exterminated afterwards. There is no limit to what I've seen the government do.
But let me ask you this, my friend. How can you be so sure this really happened? Do you have documentation? Do you have proof? Like, these are pretty hard.
My research is going in that direction now. Because now I'm coming across others that were brought into this project genetically the same way. Mm-hmm. So when I get the information, 90% of my information comes from talking to people worldwide. I don't believe these experiments were just done by the U.S. The MK Ultra was done internationally by all 5 allies. So in my corresponding overseas, most of my research comes from these correspondences with other contactees. So right now I'm looking for more evidence on the Truman genetics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be difficult to find that. But I found several that are participants of it involuntarily. So we weren't chosen. They bred us. And they also bred us with other abilities that are utilized in teleportations. There was a lot of references to the genetics the Germans were doing. So in time, I expect to get somebody. In my contacts with Facebook, I have over 1 million contacts worldwide. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping to get somebody that could give me further information on the Truman Genetics program.
All right, Kenneth, stand by. We've got to take another break here. Exonation, Kenneth Hopkins is our special guest. And we'll be back on the other side of this break. But I have to ask you, Exonation, are you a believer or are you a skeptic? Send me an email, xzone@classic1220.ca. And if you'd like us to bring a special guest on, ask our guests questions, or just say hi, how are you, love the show, send me an email, xzone@classic1220.ca. And Kevin and I will be back on the other side of this very short commercial. Wow. Right here from our studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, classic1220.ca. Don't go away.
Life's like this. That's the way it is. 'Cause life's like this. That's the way it is.
Chill out, what you yelling for? Lay back, it's all been done before. And if you could only let it be, you would see I like you the way you are when we're driving in your car.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed at classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Kenneth Hopkins. And Kenneth, you're making a lot of claims, and you have been over the years.
And most of them have been, I've had the resources to make them. My books will put things much more orderly than I could possibly put them speaking.
Okay.
Now, the CIA Aegis Prime also played a major role in the crash landings in Roswell. And all that information also disappeared off the internet. So I always have multiple resources. Mm-hmm. Also, I believe Truman, the Greys were intermediaries. So I don't believe the Pleiadians were the only ones involved in these genetic projects. I believe the reptilians, I believe a number of other celestial ETs were also involved in these genetic projects of the combining of genetics of humans with aliens. It was but when I get the additional information, all I know is I got 3 cases that are not the genetics of their mother, which speaks that an embryo was implanted in those 3 women. They seem to be in the Truman era. Mm-hmm. They're older and a little older than me. And they're usually in their 70s. So this is a group that I've been tracking and questioning. Is the older group.
Is this still being done today?
I believe this project probably ended with the Roosevelt era. I mean, with the Eisenhower era, I'm sorry.
But
So
why?
I don't believe it's continued.
But why, if in fact the ETs are still coming to planet Earth, whether they're reptilian, whether they're the praying mantis type, whether they're Greys, or whether they're Pleiadians, why do you think that the kidnapping of children and the crossbreeding of children has stopped?
Well, the kidnapping was the MK Ultra. That's a total separate project.
Okay.
That's not connected with the genetics projects. The major investigation on the MK Ultra came in 1976 with Ted Kennedy and Senator Church. They had the financial records, but they couldn't connect the financial records to the programming that was being done to the children. Later on, it was legalized, the practices of the MK Ultra, by a Republican majority. So then, just recently, in the last 10 years, the American Indians got exempted from it because they're listed as a nation. It may have been 15 years ago that happened. So they were not able to do this process to the American Indians. The American soldiers' children are basically separated and have been the most popular group they've cited. The girl I speak of in the book, her father is a high-ranking officer of naval intelligence. She and her sisters were part of the MK Ultra. They're used in the participation with the breeding. Buying babies and getting babies for the MK Ultra, they said they had no trouble getting the babies. They got them from nuns. There was no problem getting the babies. And the babies were raised, if you look up the super soldier stuff, then you come in connection with what was done with those babies. A number of former super soldiers have come forth on that.
So where do we stand now with all this interaction between the extraterrestrials and you know?
I think disclosure has got a bigger role coming on top of things. I think disclosure is going to be a lot more than the government ever planned on, and it's going to be very surprising to the American people and to those overseas. So when we start to see all the things involved, the technologies that were used for private corporations, the people killed who had information on these projects, the homicides permitted by our U.S. government. When we start to look at the whole picture, we see there's a hell of a lot more here than just simple ETs.
You know,
as I've explained in my writing,
with every
ETs I was involved, the worst that was done to them was done to them by man, not by the ETs. The cerebral implant was done by man, not by the ETs.
Okay, let me ask you this. What do you think is going to happen when these statements are brought forth to the public in, let's say, a congressional hearing? Do you ever fear for your life? Because
unfortunately, and I can't get into this much, but there's a contract that has kept me safe in some ways, and I can't say anything more than that. So I'm just, if they get rid of me, they get rid of me. But there seems to be some protections that the Celestials have put on some of us, because many people were killed that were between the ETs and man. So that's all I can say on that. They continue to do the surgery on me.
What do they do surgery on you for?
Replacing organs. I believe from the information I have, and again, I can't corroborate this, a woman testified to Earth's evacuation in 27 years from now. I believe some of these individuals, and I don't believe I'm the only one getting organ transplants, they're looking to extend their lives for that evacuation. In 2009, a Gray contact explained to them that she had been informed that the Greys had completed the ships for Earth's evacuation.
And
I'm looking at many pieces of information and then looking for what overlaps. And so a lot of it, of what I'm saying now, I'm going to say, yes, it's speculation. But from what she spoke of, she spoke that it wasn't going to be CO2. It was going to be our solar sun. That was going to bring, in my time travel to the future, there was no electronics. There was no technology.
So wait a sec. Are you saying, based on something a lady told you, that the Earth is going to be basically destroyed?
No.
What are you saying?
It's electromagnetic disruption that is basically going to make everything we work with is dependent on electricity.
Yes.
These disruptions will fry the electrical grid.
So you're talking about an EMF?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is, when I visited the future, there was no electronics. There was just the remnants of disbanded cars. In one colony, they had used them to block up a river that direct the water flow into a town. The woman they had me visit, some of the visits they had me do were for genetic purposes. So they had me visit this woman in the future on 5 separate occasions, and I could never put together. We're not told what is going on with us. We just experience it and then try to put it together. When I'm teleported to a city, I don't know what city I'm in.
Well, who teleports you? Who teleports you?
The pictures, it's an outside force. I'm not exactly sure. One night at 3 a.m., the entire end of the house, that room I was in, was vibrating. So I believe the camera showed electromagnetic frequency. We had 3 different frequencies we showed on film. So we believe the 3 different frequencies reflected 3 different technologies in teleportation. The shape of the disruptions, and I can, if you want to, I can send you the shape of the disruptions.
Sure.
But it showed that there were 3 different technologies teleporting, not one technology.
All right, let me ask you, who is doing it? Why are they doing it to you?
They're doing it to millions. I talked to over hundreds of contactees, and they're not going to talk to the general public.
Why not?
Well, what's a psychologist going to do? Women that lost the babies were put in mental institutions. Society, now we're getting new psychologists coming in. The psychologist I work with has researched very much of the celestial contacts. But there's going to be a period where the government can only deny so long. When we wake up with these surgical marks over a foot long, the evidence is definitely there. I got lots of pictures of the marks that are left from the surgical procedures done to the contactees. In 90% of these cases, of the ones I've looked at, they've been to help the individual.
All right, before we go on, I have to take my final break, so please stand by.
All right, sure.
Exonation, Kenneth Hopkins is our guest. And we're talking about, let me see if I can go down the list. CIA involvement with MKUltra, a 7-year-old child in a hospital in Boston. Then we're talking about alien abductions. We're talking about time travel. We're talking about military knowing what is going on, and there's a connection between an agreement with the United States and aliens during the Roosevelt. I think it was Roosevelt, he said.
Yeah, it was
Roosevelt.
Along with,
Okay,
there was
all
one
right,
with
now,
Truman.
now. I've got to take my break, so please stand
I'm
by.
sorry.
Okay, Exo Nation, Kenneth and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220.
That's the way it is. 'Cause life's like this.
Up until now, I've learned to live without love. Like a ship without a sail, wandering aimlessly lost.
And you're listening to Classic 1220 and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Kenneth Hopkins is our special guest this hour. I don't know why I want to call you Kevin. Maybe it's because Kevin Randall's my good friend. Kenneth Hopkins is our guest. And Kenneth, I think more has happened to you in your lifetime than any other guest I've had on this show in 30 years. Yeah. You know, what do people say usually when you tell them about your experiences? And how do you deal with skepticism?
Well, most of the shows I've been doing have been carrying incredibly positive responses because many of them have also been abducted. Abduction is kind of like witchcraft. You're not going to talk to it to the general public. You're going to talk to it to other abductees. And worldwide, we've kind of gotten into this relaxation with other abductees and talking to other abductees. My wife, which is kind of funny, she was with the United Nations, and they definitely have involvement with the Celestials. They have for a period of time. So she ended up in several abductions in the beginning of our relationship. And I thought that was kind of funny. They left surgical marks on her that were pretty apparent. And then there's a whole group that even don't know they're being abducted. I didn't know I was an abductee till I was in my 50s, early 50s. And the psychiatrists weren't helping. I saw specialists, I saw people, and then MUFON and NUFOR were doing a game of intimidation. So there was a lot of reason for people not to report their abductions to the government man.
So when you talk about MUFON and intimidation, what do you mean?
I can speak for Massachusetts MUFON, and I believe Raymond Fowler said a very similar thing. The positions became inhabited by former FBI agents and former retired CIA agents. And so when I went to MUFON, I had some bad flashbacks. So there was a group called CERO,
Mm-hmm.
CERO. So I wanted to get some counseling from CERO. So I thought MUFON would give me the direction of that. MUFON went a lot further. They started asking for information. They want to know who the hypnotist was. And they threatened me if I didn't give them who the hypnotist was, they wouldn't tell me who CERO could help me. So they were making very bizarre games. In the end, they had the hypnotist give the names of the women that were abducted with me. So I stopped work with her. But that gave me an idea. The only thing going on with mass MUFON was the gathering of information and the withholding of information. So I worked with New Hampshire MUFON. I found New Hampshire MUFON much more sincere. They broke through the 16-hour missing time, which nobody was able to get through. It took us 3 years to break through that. Contacts out of New Hampshire, and the hypnotist I work with and currently work with is out of New Hampshire. So I've gotten most of my assistants out of state.
So what?
MUFON is a mixed bag in a lot of different states.
But what exactly did you want MUFON to do, and what is?
They were connected to Ciro, and Ciro specialized in helping people with PTSD, getting understanding of what they experience. So Ciro was a group, and I forget the creator of it, but it was to provide psychological services to the victims of abductions.
And this help you couldn't get anywhere else?
MUFON lied. They never gave it to me. There was no Ciro group in Massachusetts.
Wow.
So this is what promoted me to go out and start talking to people, helping other people understand what they're going through. For me, the only way I was going to get help, if I paid James Mars $100 to send him a question, everybody was charging. With the positive groups, there's no charging involved. It's the sharing of information, not the sharing and charging you. So I became fed up with a lot of the supports that they were not able to assist many of us. So most of us kept it to ourselves. And if we found somebody else familiar with the experiences, we discussed it with them. To tell somebody that I've had sex with over a dozen Pleiadian hybrids, they're going to think I'm crazy.
Have you?
To the sexual projects, the book that I'm publishing now is dealing with the Gray's hybrid projects.
No. My question was, have you had sex with many extraterrestrials yourself?
Most of us have.
So
most of us contactees have had some sexual interaction with the celestials.
All right, so you are saying that you have had sex with extraterrestrials, okay? You were telling me before that you still get abducted a couple of times a week.
Yeah, it's slowed down, which is because it leaves us exhausted.
Why are they still abducting you?
And class is what it started out with. But what we were taught we couldn't remember. And this has left me with a lot of doubts with the Pleiadians. And one of my contactees that I was in abductions with had tantrums, and eventually they expelled her. And now they're recently reabsorbing her or letting her come in. But we're taken to night classes at night, and these night classes start at age 7. We remember the children we interacted with. We remember before the class and remember after the class. We rarely remember much from the classes. We've gone after the classes with hypnosis, and even then, we've not been able to get much of what's going on with the classes. The Pleiadians have explained to us that when that information becomes necessary, we will get that recall.
So why are they still abducting you to this very day?
The classes, we were doing about 10 years ago, we were doing Earth evacuations with these pods. We were learning how to take nutrition through pills. They're discussing rotation of suspended animation in and out. There was talk of 2 planets. Again, what I'm getting into now is somewhat speculative. But we don't remember a lot of the classes.
So what do you think the ETs are going to be up to next? Like, what is their next move, and what is their ultimate agenda?
They've already had, the reptilians have pretty much played out their agenda. And the reptilians have shown, and for those poor abductees of the reptilians that are experiencing the rapes and the torments, they have certainly shown their colors. And the reptilians have infiltrated our military branches with their ideologies. So they all have their different agendas. My agenda is with the higher frequency.
Okay. Now, are we talking about extraterrestrials here? Or are we talking...
higher frequency, I'm talking about those that are good. Those who are into serving one another. The Pleiadians have a fairly simple concept for religion. Serve man, you serve God, or you serve the Creator. They don't use God. So by serving one another, you're serving the Creator. It makes for a much more simpler adaptation to life. Then you have those that are into serving themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in spite of the death of others, in spite of those that are not eating, there's enough resources on this planet to feed everyone. The hoarding of those resources and the means of the hoarding of those resources has been the darkness the lower frequencies has brought to this planet. Reptilian, draconian, the Anunnaki I'm getting different information on. The Anunnaki played a role in the Bible, and the I forget that race.
The Nephilim.
But so there's a lot of areas I'm looking into that I haven't completed or have assumptions on.
So what is your final goal? What are you working to accomplish?
I believe the higher frequency beings have something to add to Earth other than war. I believe the separation that's been discussed, again, this is assumption, is those that are for serving self will be brought to another planet, and those that serve one another will be brought to another planet. That's a division the Greys have repeatedly come up with, dividing the world into two sources, those that serve themselves and those that serve one another.
Wow. All right, you've had one heck of a life, my friend. I hope it gets better for you.
It continues.
It continues. Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for sharing your experiences. Love to have you back on in the future to discuss more of what you've gone through and to see if there's any changes in what the final objective might be. So until then, thank you very much for joining us. Take care of yourself, my friend.
Take care.
All right, thanks, Kenneth.
Direct anyone that has experiences to speak with me if they would like to.
All right, I certainly will send that message out. Take care.
Right.
Take care.
You take care.
Bye-bye now. And that's it for tonight, Exo Nation. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. So until tomorrow night, always remember, take care of yourself, love your children, and always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.